Welcome, deep divers. Get ready for a deep dive that's, well, it's really going to reshape how you think about seafood. Today, we're plunging into the fascinating world of Japan's emerging land-based aquaculture industry. And look, this isn't just about, basic fish farms. We're talking about a pretty significant transformation in how we produce seafood. It's being driven by incredible innovation and, frankly, necessity.
That's absolutely right. Our mission today really is to unpack how this industry is growing, who the key players are, and some might surprise you, and, well, what makes it such a vital part of Japan's future food security. We'll uncover some unexpected facts and look at companies entering this field that, they'll definitely make you look at your sushi a bit differently.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. What exactly is land-based aquaculture? At its core, it's about raising aquatic products, fish, shrimp, even seaweed, in these artificial facilities on land, usually in large tanks, which is a big departure from traditional marine farming, the kind you see in ocean pens, right?
Exactly. And a really key distinction here is that these land-based operations, they don't require traditional fishing rights. And that simple fact has really sort of opened the door. It makes it accessible to a much more diverse range of companies than before.
Interesting.
And building on that, there are essentially two main systems people use. First, there's the flow-through system.
Yeah.
That one uses natural water, like river or seawater, and then discharges it after use. But increasingly, the recirculating aquaculture system, or RAS, is becoming the norm. That's RAS.
RAS, okay.
Yeah, this system purifies and reuses the water, which minimizes waste. And you see RAS being adopted by many of the large-scale facilities because, well, it significantly lowers the environmental impact. Plus, it has far fewer location constraints. You don't have to be right on the coast.
Right, that makes sense. So that's the what and how, but maybe the bigger question is, why this big surge now? What's driving it?
It's really a combination of factors converging. We're seeing declining coastal catches, not just in Japan, but globally. A lot of that is down to climate change impacts and historical overfishing.
Mm-hmm.
So that creates this really pressing need for a more stable, reliable seafood supply.
And the government's involved too, I guess.
Oh, definitely. The Japanese government actually formulated a strategy back in 2020 specifically to promote aquaculture as a growth industry. And that move alone, well, it's led to a real surge in new facility plans and operators jumping in, including, as you mentioned, some really interesting new entrants from totally different sectors.
Right.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, you see global seafood demand is actually increasing. Population growth, rising health consciousness.
Yeah, people want more fish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But traditional marine aquaculture, it faces some serious challenges.
Yeah.
It's got limited suitable coastal areas, rising water temperatures causing problems, damaging red tides, marine pollution from the farms themselves. It's tough.
Mm-hmm.
Land-based aquaculture kind of sidesteps these issues. It allows for planned production, regardless of weather. You get a controlled growth environment. And these facilities, the good ones anyway, can even purify wastewater before discharge. So that offers substantial environmental benefits aligning with those sustainable development goals, the SDGs.
Okay.
Plus, you have that government promotion, like the 2022 Basic Fisheries Plan, and constant advancements in the tech closed circulation systems, water quality monitoring, reliable backup power. It's all steadily decreasing the business risks. Makes it a much more viable option now.
Okay, so we got the fundamentals down. Let's maybe pivot to the scale of this. Just how big is this market getting and, how fast is it actually growing?
Well, the numbers are pretty telling. According to some private research, the market just for the land-based aquaculture systems and equipment in Japan, it was estimated somewhere in the range of 8 to 12 billion yen. That was for fiscal year 2022.
8 to 12 billion yen. Okay.
Yeah, and another specific estimate from Yana Research Institute put it at just over 8.3 billion yen in FY 2022. But here's the kicker. They project it to reach almost 12 billion yen by FY 2027.
Wow, so that's, roughly 40% growth in just 5 years?
Exactly. A really clear indicator of its rapid adoption and, investor confidence.
And that's just the equipment.
Well, focusing even more specifically, the equipment market for just the closed recirculating systems, the RAS ones, that alone hit around 6.5 billion yen in 2023. And it's expected to grow at 5-10% annually, hitting maybe 8 billion yen by 2026. So robust growth across the board.
And what about the actual fish, the production volume?
That's also showing significant growth. Land-based aquaculture production, it roughly doubled in the 4 years leading up to 2023. The estimate for 2023 was around 2,250 tons.
Okay, 2,250 tons. How does that compare overall?
Well, admittedly, that's still a relatively small slice of Japan's total aquaculture fish production right now, maybe 0.2%. But the projection is for it to expand substantially, maybe hitting 3.6% by 2030.
3.6%. So still small, but growing fast.
Right. And we're seeing plans for some really massive plants. Like there's a Norwegian company, Proximar, building a salmon farm down in Shizuoka Prefecture. Their target is over 5,000 tons a year.
Whoa.
Yeah. And another major project underway in Toyama Prefecture is aiming for nearly 2,500 tons annually. These are big operations.
Okay, help put that in perspective. How big is Japan's overall fishing industry?
Sure. So Japan's total fishery and aquaculture production value in 2021, it was around 1.4 trillion yen, give or take.
Trillion. Okay, big number.
Yeah. And marine aquaculture, the traditional sea-based stuff, accounted for about 450 billion yen of that, so maybe roughly a third.
Gotcha.
So yeah, land-based is currently a small fraction, but its future potential is immense, especially as those traditional methods face more and more hurdles. And it's also worth noting, as of early 2023, there were already over 660 confirmed land-based aquaculture businesses spread across Japan, even in inland prefectures. So the foundation is definitely expanding nationwide.
Right. Okay, so to really get our heads around how this whole thing works, you mentioned we need to look at the value chain. That's a whole journey from start to finish, right?
Exactly. The entire journey from, getting the baby fish all the way through to the final sale. And we can broadly break it down into 5 key stages.
All right, let's walk through them. What's stage 1?
Okay, stage 1 is seed fry supply. This is getting the juvenile fish to start with. For a lot of species like chub mackerel, flounder, pufferfish, aquatic research institutions and existing aquaculture companies, even prefectural fisheries stations, they already have the tech to produce and supply these juveniles.
So that part's kind of established.
In many cases, yes. But what's really interesting here is how startups are jumping in. There's a company called Regional Fish Co., Ltd., for example. They're using genetic technology, gene editing, actually, to develop improved fish varieties that grow faster, like a growth-promoting red sea bream.
Wow, okay. Faster growing fish. What's next after you have the fry?
Then comes 2, feed supply. And this is a huge market in itself. The compound feed market for farmed fish generally is vast, but for land-based, there's a strong focus on low fish meal feed.
Low fish meal. Why is that important?
It's crucial for maintaining water quality in these closed RAS systems. Traditional fish meal can sometimes cause issues, so they're using alternative proteins, think soy, or even insect-derived protein.
Insects again. Okay.
Yeah. And get this. Research shows the low fish meal feed market alone was valued around 38 billion yen back in 2022.
38 billion. That's way bigger than the equipment market figure you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. It just highlights how critical and valuable the feed component is in this whole equation.
Okay, so we've got fry, we've got feed. What's stage 3?
Stage 3 is 3, equipment technology provision. This is all the gear and the brains behind the operation. It involves a whole array of products and services, everything from the physical tanks themselves to really advanced filtration systems, pumps, high-tech water quality monitors, sophisticated IoT management systems.
So the hardware and the software.
Pretty much. And you've got major engineering companies like JGC Holdings or Mizawa Industries stepping up. They're providing these integrated closed recirculation systems, basically designing and building entire aquaculture plants.
Makes sense for engineering firms.
Yeah, but we're also seeing new entrants from kind of unexpected industries like CKD. They're known for automation equipment, but they're developing specialized dissolved oxygen control systems for aquaculture. And RIX, another industrial equipment company, has ventured into making closed circulation equipment too.
Interesting diversification. Okay, stage 4.
Stage 4 is aquaculture production. This is the core farming part, the day-to-day operations. So feeding the fish, meticulously managing water quality, dealing with disease countermeasures. And there's a unique challenge here. In these closed environments, if pathogens get into the tanks, you risk potentially total loss.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds risky.
It is. So extremely high hygiene management is just non-negotiable. And this is where technology really helps advanced monitoring, automatic feeders, even AI cameras that can monitor fish growth and health in these large-scale facilities.
Using AI to watch fish. Okay. And the final stage.
Finally, stage 5. Processing distribution sales, getting the product to market. Often, traditional seafood distribution networks are used, especially by aquaculture businesses that are maybe part of larger seafood companies already.
Makes sense. Use existing channels.
Right. But a lot of the newer entrants, they're often bypassing these traditional routes. They might market directly to high-end sushi restaurants or luxury inns trying to build a premium brand image, or they sell straight to consumers through e-commerce websites.
Direct to consumer.
Yeah. And a really specific example is J.R. West, the railway company. They have their own brand called ProFish, and they sell fish farmed through their initiatives via their own railway-affiliated retail channels.
A railway company selling fish.
Yeah.
Okay, that's definitely different.
It is. And what's really noteworthy across this whole chain is the growing potential for integration. You see more inter-industry collaboration, companies may be handling multiple stages, creating more streamlined and efficient operations from start to finish.
Right, connecting the dots.
Okay.
Okay, let's broaden the view a bit then. Thinking about the competitive landscape, what are the alternatives out there? What's land-based aquaculture up against?
Good question. There are a few key alternatives vying for market share. First, obviously, there's marine aquaculture, the traditional sea-based farming. It's still the mainstay, especially for large fish like tuna and yellowtail. It won't be replaced overnight, but as we discussed, it's facing stagnation due to those environmental constraints.
Yeah, the incumbent. What else?
Then there's imported seafood. This is a big one, especially for species like salmon. Japan relies heavily on imports from places like Chile and Norway.
Right, most salmon here is imported.
Exactly. Now, domestically produced land-based salmon, currently, it often has a price disadvantage compared to imports. But with import prices rising, fluctuating exchange rates, tricky logistics, there's a growing demand for that domestic land-based salmon because it offers, much better supply stability and guaranteed freshness.
Ah, so the economics might be shifting. Interesting. Any other alternatives?
Yeah, a really fascinating development is the rise of alternative seafood. We're talking products that don't actually use fish or seafood at all.
Plant-based fish.
Exactly. Like there's tuna like sashimi made from konjac powder, or salmon and squid sashimi alternatives. Nippon Ham, the big food company, they started selling plant-based tuna commercially in 2023. Apparently, they got the texture and flavor good enough for sushi toppings.
Huh?
And another company, Azuma Foods, has a Marude Sakana series. 100% plant-based products mimicking tuna and salmon. They're finding popularity overseas, especially in vegan markets. It's a direct response to concerns about overfishing and environmental impact.
Right, tapping into that sustainability trend.
Definitely. And looking even further ahead, there's cell-cultured fish meat.
Lab-grown fish.
Essentially, yeah. Producing fish meat through cellular agriculture. It's still mostly in R&D, but companies overseas have made cultured tuna. And here in Japan, startups and universities are working on cultured eel and sea bream.
Eel. That's a big one.
Huge! The government's even supporting it as part of food tech. Some folks expect maybe some commercialization around 2030, but, high costs and complicated regulations are still pretty significant hurdles for now. It's more of a future prospect at this point.
Okay, so that context is useful. But maybe the most interesting part of the competition is within land-based aquaculture itself.
Yeah.
You mentioned the diverse players.
Yes, this is where it gets really dynamic. It's not just the traditional fisheries companies anymore. We're seeing, like you said, trading companies, machinery manufacturers, IT firms, even railway companies, all diving in.
Sounds like a major reshuffle.
It really is. You could call it an industry restructuring, and it's marked by some significant M&A activity and capital alliances. For instance, take Marubeni Corporation. They're a major general trading company. They didn't just acquire a Danish land-based salmon farm, Danish Salmon AS, back in 2020. They also secured exclusive sales rights for the EVJ Atlantic salmon. That's produced by Norway's Proximar Seafood at that big land-based farm they're building in Shizuoka.
The one you mentioned earlier.
The very one. First large-scale land-based Atlantic salmon operation in Japan. Shipments started in 2024. Marubeni is handling the full market rollout, building the brand, expanding sales channels to fresh fish stores, supermarkets, department stores, even eyeing exports to Asia. It shows how trading companies can leverage their global reach and distribution muscle.
Okay, so trading companies are playing big. What about the established fish companies?
They're definitely adapting. You have giants like Nishui Corporation, that's Nippon Suzon Kaisha. They've invested heavily in large-scale land-based farms for chub mackerel and Pacific white shrimp in Tottori Prefecture. They partnered with Hitachi Zosen on the mackerel facility. It shows how traditional players are integrating this new approach.
So they're adding it to their toolkit.
Exactly. And then there's Maruha Nishiro, another huge fisheries company. They've actually formed a joint venture called Atland with Mitsubishi Corporation.
Mitsubishi, the conglomerate.
The very same. They're building a massive closed recirculation Atlantic salmon farm in Toyama Prefecture, aiming for 2,500 tons a year. They plan to use local resources like subsoil water and deep ocean water. Operations plan for FY 2025, shipments FY 2027. It's a major collaboration.
Wow. Okay, what about startups or more specialized ventures?
Absolutely key. Look at FRD Japan. They're a dedicated land-based aquaculture venture. They've developed their own proprietary closed recirculation system called Okasadachi. They focus on salmon trout, large rainbow trout. They've been running pilot plants since 2017. Mitsui & Co., another trading giant, invested early on. Just last year, they secured over 3 billion yen in funding from companies like Airwater and Sekisui Chemical.
Big names investing.
Yeah. They're
Yeah.
building a commercial plant in Chiba with a 3,500-ton annual capacity. Their key thing is this low water exchange system using special bacterial filtration. It cuts cooling costs and allows for drug-free aquaculture. Real tech focus.
Drug-free is a big selling point.
Huge. Then you have companies coming from completely different angles, like General Oyster. They primarily operate oyster bars.
Oyster bars, how do they fit in?
Well, their subsidiary, Jugo Farm, announced what they claim is the world's first complete land-based aquaculture of safe norovirus-free oysters, using deep ocean water in tanks on Kumajima Island in Okinawa.
Norovirus-free oysters, that would be massive.
Exactly. It tackles the huge red tide and norovirus issues that plague traditional oyster farming. They're looking at mass production now. Stable, year-round, safe oysters. Game changer potential.
Definitely. Any other surprising ones?
How about Riken Vitamin? They're mainly known for food products like dressings and processed seaweed.
Okay.
Their subsidiary, Riken Foods, opened a land-based seaweed aquaculture facility in Iwate Prefecture back in 2021. They're growing a high-grade seaweed called Tsuchionori, whose natural production has really decreased.
Farming seaweed on land.
Yep. And their land-based seaweed even received sustainability certification from Marine Eco-Label Japan. It shows you can secure raw materials this way and contribute to SDGs. Stable seaweed production.
Incredible range. What about tech companies getting directly involved in production?
Oh, yeah. Look at NEC Networks and System Integration Corporation, or NESIC. They're an ICT company. They established a joint venture back in 2019 called Nets Forest Land-Based Aquaculture with Hayashi Yoshokujo, which is a long-established freshwater fish farm.
Okay. Tech meets tradition.
Precisely. They're combining Hayashi's aquaculture know-how with NEC's AI and IoT tech for land-based salmon farming. They shipped their first fish in August 2023, and NESIC has even launched a franchise-based land-based aquaculture package. They're aiming for 30 billion yen in annual sales by FY 2029, really pushing for scale, efficiency, and labor savings through digital tech smart aquaculture.
A franchise model. That's ambitious.
It is. And don't forget Itochu Corporation, another major trading house. They partnered with Pure Salmon Group's Japanese subsidiary, Soul of Japan, back in 2019.
Pure salmon. I've heard of them.
They're a global player. Itochu secured exclusive domestic sales rights for the Atlantic salmon that Soul of Japan will produce at their big farm under construction in Mie Prefecture. Again, thousands of tons capacity. Once operations begin, Itochu handles all the distribution in Japan. It's a classic symbiotic partnership.
Right. Access to market for the producer, stable supply for the trader.
Exactly.
It's just amazing hearing about all these different players. We mentioned J.R. West's ProFish brand and NTT East's project with regional fish.
Right, NTT East, the telecom giant, getting into food production for regional revitalization and smart aquaculture via their Green and Food project. It's really striking.
And then the machinery and infrastructure companies you touched on, Yanmar, JGC, Maisawa, even Panasonic, providing systems, doing experiments.
Yeah, Yanmar's investing in companies like AquaStage for advanced water treatment, JGC and Maizawa building plants, Panasonic involved in system development.
It truly speaks to how cross-sector this entire industry has become. It's drawing expertise from everywhere.
That's a perfect way to put it. So to kind of summarize where we are, Japan's land-based aquaculture industry, it's clearly a highly promising, high-growth sector. It really looks poised to become a new pillar of domestic food supply here, driven by that incredible innovation we talked about, a real commitment to sustainability, and yeah, those changing global dynamics around seafood.
Absolutely. But, while the potential seems immense, we can't ignore the hurdles, right? You mentioned high initial cost.
Definitely. High costs are a major factor. And the complexities of risk management, especially when you scale up to mass production, that pathogen risk we discussed, plus the ongoing need to develop markets and build brands.
Yeah, so to survive and really thrive, especially with so many new companies jumping in,
Yeah.
it sounds like Differentiated technology, strong branding, and probably powerful partnerships are going to be absolutely crucial.
Couldn't agree more. Those will be key differentiators. And it does suggest that we might see, well, a significant shakeout or consolidation down the line as the landscape matures.
Very likely.
Yeah, that ongoing industry restructuring, the M&A, the alliances, that's likely to accelerate as the winners and losers start to emerge.
So, okay, wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, the listener? Maybe consider how this increasing shift towards land-based aquaculture could fundamentally change our relationship with seafood. It's not just about, availability and freshness. Maybe it's potentially about a future where we more consciously perceive the environmental footprint of what we eat. Moving towards a time where land farmed becomes recognized as a truly sustainable, high-quality choice on the menu.